Inflation is plummeting, incomes are rising, the economy is stronger than ever, GDP is growing, unemployment is low, and the stock market is at all-time highs. So then, why can't you afford a house? Because home prices just hit the highest level in decades, while the average American can't buy until their 40s, if at all. And what nobody's telling you is that the housing market stopped working for you about 40 years ago. Because this isn't just about supply and demand or interest rates. It's about a rigged system where three players figured out they make way more money when you can't buy. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why working harder and saving more won't save you. But I'll tell you exactly what will. So, I spent weeks tracking how the biggest home builders in America turned housing into a Wall Street casino. And what I found should scare the shit out of you. So, why can't you afford a house? Most people think it's supply and demand, but that's not it. What I found is that the biggest home builders in America figured out a trick to inflate every price in your market, even if you never buy from them. Let me show you exactly how this works. D.R. Horton currently builds about 1 out of every 7 new homes in America. Last year alone, they made $4.4 billion for their shareholders. And their secret weapon is their own mortgage department, which captured 81% of all their home sales. Here's why that matters. They have access to cheaper Wall Street capital than most lenders, which lets them offer lower rates. So, stay with me while we do some math. For a $2,000 monthly payment at 6% interest, you can probably get a home in the $300,000 range. But if you get a 4% rate from D.R. Horton, you may be able to get a house that's in the $400,000 range. Great deal, right? But here's what they don't tell you. That inflated $400,000 price enters real estate databases and becomes the key imp for every other house in the area. When I pulled up their earnings call transcript, listen to what their CEO actually said. We focus predominantly on incentives where we can, and that's allowed us to maintain a lot of our base pricing across the country. Translation, they keep prices artificially high, and it pushes the entire market up. But that's just how they get you to overpay. Wait until you see what you're actually buying. So, you're paying record prices. Surely you're getting a quality home, right? Wrong. Because what I found is that these companies are actually building homes that poison families, and it is more profitable than doing it right. When I spoke to Sarah and Eric Munoz, they told me they bought a D.R. Horton home in San Antonio. 2 months after moving in, their son's playroom was covered in mold. When they looked closer, the frame of the home was set up like Jenga. It just moved freely in the wind. But it gets worse. Another homeowner named Madeline told me her daughter had nosebleeds so bad that she cried blood tears from mold exposure. The 6-year-old was asking her mom if she was going to die. Now, you would think making people sick would be bad for business. But here's the thing. Last year, D.R. Horton spent $194 million on home repairs. That is a lot of money, but it is only about 4.5% of what their shareholders made in the same year. Listen to what their executive said on the earnings call. On the stick and brick side, is there still opportunity to take more cost out? We believe there is still opportunity there. They literally call it clawing back margin. So they overcharge you for a house that poisons your family, but they are not done yet. Because what I found next is not just shady business practice. It's allegedly a fraud. When I reviewed court documents from the new class action lawsuit, they claim D.R. Horton has been intentionally deceiving homebuyers about their monthly payments to sell people more expensive homes. And they are seeking RICO charges. That's organized crime territory. The Munoz family experienced this firsthand. They had been paying about $1,000 a year in property taxes. Then it suddenly jumped to $6,500 a year, more than 6 times what they were paying. Eric's response was to just work more. All I had to do was work a little more, maybe catch a second or third job. Sarah was very pregnant at the time, and she could not handle the stress anymore. they had to let go of the house that was sold to them as a dream. So, how does this work? Well, the property taxes were assessed for a piece of land with no actual house on it yet. That low number was built into the monthly payment to make it look like the house was within their budget, even though it was not. Buried in the contract was a notice that payments could go up, but the sales agent just kept flipping papers. Sign here, sign this, do this. Very little explanation of anything. And as they were loading everything up and driving away, they were leaving behind a nightmare. But at least you own the house once you buy it, right? Well, about that. Because the same companies building homes are not even selling them to people anymore. Lennar, one of the big builders, created what it calls a build-to-rent community. On Lennar's investor portal, I saw a 661 square foot home and exactly how much investors can make from it. They are building entire subdivisions to sell directly to Wall Street landlords. When I met Sonia Nelson, she said she wanted to build a nice community with neighbors. What she found was that every single house to the left and to the right of hers is a rental property owned by investors. It makes me mad because I think it is keeping prices artificially high. These neighborhoods are becoming just rental communities. Recently, President Trump signed an executive order that bans large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. Sounds great, right? But the actual order carved out an exemption for big home builders. They can still sell entire subdivisions directly to Wall Street. Conveniently, Bill Pulte, who invested in this model, became one of President Trump's top housing officials. I spoke with Kendall Graves, who lives in one of these build-to-rent communities. His air conditioning broke in the middle of summer, and it took more than 2 weeks to fix. He had to stay with his parents. When I asked what kind of home he would want to buy, he said, not a Lennar, probably not a D.R. Horton. This trend is accelerating fast. Lennar's investor portal launched in 2023 and already accounts for 18% of their new construction. So you are competing against Wall Street to buy overpriced, poorly built homes. But why are there not more houses being built? Because the housing market did not always work this way. Home building was very different 50 or 60 years ago. You did not have just one home builder in any community. You had multiple home builders, and they all competed against each other to build houses for people. That meant we had plentiful housing. But then things changed. During the savings and loan crisis in the 1980s, a lot of local banks disappeared, and many small home builders could not get loans anymore. But if you were a big home builder with connections to Wall Street and the capital markets, you could go public and get capital that way, and they spent that money not on building more houses, but on buying up more and more home builders and consolidating the industry. So, D.R. Horton controls 1 out of every 7 new homes in America, which gives them the power to control how many homes actually get built. And on Wall Street, they call that discipline. Disciplined, returns-focused operating. With discipline, we exceeded, performed with discipline. Aaron Lehman, a real estate agent in Dallas, told me consolidation in the industry makes it more economically feasible for the builders to throttle production. We have turned housing into a plaything for wealthy people to use as an investment tool. A Johns Hopkins study estimated that home builder consolidation reduced housing production by roughly $106 billion a year between 2005 and 2016. And through their subsidiary Forestar, D.R. Horton controls hundreds of thousands of lots that most other builders cannot build on. Their land bank has grown 34% in just the last 2 years. Land hoarding means fewer homes get built, which means higher prices. If this pace continues, analysts estimate 40% of single-family homes in Sunbelt metros will be investor-owned by 2030. So, they are restricting supply, inflating prices, cutting quality, and selling to Wall Street. But why cannot anyone stop them? Because this is not just a housing problem. It is the same loop that has broken the entire economy. Remember how the Fed has been pumping money into markets since 2008? That money does not go to wages. It goes to assets, stocks, bonds, and real estate. Home builders are just another node in that system. So let me show you the three players protecting this. First, the CEOs. Bill Pulte personally made millions from build-to-rent investments before becoming Trump's housing official. They are paid in stock options, and they are incentivized to inflate stock prices through buybacks and by restricting supply. Second, the asset managers. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street manage $24 trillion, and they are the largest shareholders in 88% of S&P 500 companies, including these home builders. Their voting records show they approved buyback programs that reduced housing production while inflating stock prices. When stock prices rise, their management fees rise automatically. Third, the politicians. Housing market performance has become the presidential scorecard. The executive order bans investors except for the exact model Pulte profits from. That exemption was added in the final draft after meetings with home builder lobbyists. No administration can let housing crash without political suicide. Home builders need stock prices up. Asset managers need prices up. Politicians need the market up. Everyone protects the system. You are not the customer anymore. Wall Street is. So let me show you exactly what this looks like in your life right now. Just like the economy split into two, housing has split. Top line, homeowners watching equity balloon, buying second homes and Airbnb portfolios. Bottom line, renters watching prices escape reach, competing against hedge funds and forming a permanent renter class. And here is what nobody tells you. The difference is not income anymore. 41% of people making $300,000 to $500,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So what is clear is that the line is not income, it is ownership. If you own assets, the system carries you. If you do not, it pulls away. So, what will save you? Not policy change, not hoping prices drop. Understanding that housing is now a Wall Street asset class means you must think like an investor, not a buyer. House hacking. Buying in cash flow markets, Wall Street has not dominated. Partnering with families to outbid institutions. The rules changed. Change with them. Look, I am not going to lie. I am trying to get on the right side before it is too late. If you have a problem with me wanting to escape the permanent renter class, unsubscribe right now. Because in a world where housing is a Wall Street casino, people who understand the game will always do better than people who refuse to acknowledge it.